My life has always followed a well-structured plan aimed at securing a stable future. I worked hard, got my degree, and landed a secure job. When I met Karen at university, everything seemed to fall into place. We built a life together, had kids, and settled in Albany. It was routine, but I took pride in it. However, beneath the surface, I often felt something was off. The daily grind and seemingly perfect family life sometimes felt too perfect, like a facade. I pushed those doubts aside, convincing myself this was happiness. But over time, the cracks in our life became impossible to ignore. Today feels different, like the start of a new chapter. There's a heaviness in the air, and I know big changes are coming. My children, Keith and Andrea, are the center of my world. Keith is in 3rd grade, and Andrea just started 1st grade. They're great kids, but their lives are about to change in ways they don't deserve. The kids resemble their mother more than me. I'm not particularly handsome, but I'm not unattractive either. I'm 6 feet tall, 165 pounds, and keep fit by running daily and cycling professionally in the summer. At 34, with dark brown hair and a decent smile thanks to childhood orthodontics, I'm in good shape. I wear glasses or contacts depending on the day. Karen, also 34, is a web developer, and we live in Albany, New York, a peaceful, if somewhat boring, city. Our life is steady, though some might call it dull. I blame the demands of daily life, family, work, and home, for shaping me into this routine-driven person. Fun is often limited to weekends and summers. This morning, as I looked in the mirror before my run, I thought, what should I do? I have a problem. I decided to talk to my friend Jordan Walters, an attorney who handles wills, probate, and family law. I made a mental note to call him. After my run, I got home around 6:30, made coffee, showered, and got dressed. Karen and the kids were waking up, so I made school lunches and packed myself a sandwich. We chatted over breakfast about the day ahead, including upcoming parent-teacher conferences. Everything seemed fine. I kissed everyone goodbye, except for Keith, who preferred a fist bump, his new thing. Then I walked out the door to face another day in my wonderfully predictable life. The day of the parent-teacher conference coincided with a personal meeting I had scheduled with Jordan. We hadn't seen each other in a few months, so we met at a cafe halfway between our offices. After we ordered coffee and pie, I got right to the point. Jordan, I need your advice. I've got a serious problem with Karen. Jordan looked surprised. Karen? Your wife of 9 years? The mother of your 2 kids? I nodded, taking a bite of pie. Yes, that's her. It seems she's involved with someone else. I'm not sure how long this has been going on, but I don't know what to do. I need your advice, both as a lawyer and as a friend. Jordan took a deep breath and said, Mark, you're in a tough spot. Legally, divorcing Karen in New York could be challenging. The law tends to favor the wife, especially when it comes to custody of the children. Unless you can prove she's unfit, she'll likely get custody of the kids in the house. You'll also be on the hook for child support until they're 21, as well as spousal support and possibly the mortgage. He paused for a moment, then continued. Let me give you a quick overview of divorce law in New York. There are 7 grounds for divorce. The most common is an irreparable breakdown of the marriage for at least 6 months, often referred to as a no-fault divorce. For this, the marriage must have lasted at least 6 months, and all financial and custody issues must be resolved. Then there's cruel and inhumane treatment, which requires proof of severe cruelty within the last 5 years. Simple arguments aren't enough. The cruelty must be extreme enough that it's unsafe to continue living together. He went on. Another ground is abandonment, where one spouse leaves for at least a year or refuses sexual relations, known as constructive abandonment. Then there's imprisonment, which applies if a spouse has been in prison for 3 or more consecutive years. Infidelity is also a ground, but it can be difficult to prove since it requires evidence from someone other than the spouses involved. Legal separation can also lead to divorce if the couple lives apart for a year under a valid separation agreement. Lastly, there's divorce after a separation decree, though it's rarely used. The court issues a separation decree, and the couple must live apart for a year before filing for divorce on this ground. As Jordan spoke, I realized just how complicated and difficult this situation was going to be. The legal landscape was daunting, and the personal toll was even more overwhelming. My eyes started to glaze over as Jordan continued explaining divorce in New York. So, Mark, if you go for a divorce, your main options are citing irreparable breakdown or infidelity, Jordan said, his voice steady and analytical. Proving infidelity will require solid evidence. Either Karen admits to the affair or someone else confirms it, or you find other proof." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation settle on my shoulders. Jordan continued, "The irreparable breakdown of your marriage is the most common reason people use, but think carefully before deciding." I was at a loss for words, unsure how to respond. Sensing my hesitation, Jordan shifted his tone. "Okay, that's the legal side. Now, let me talk to you as a friend." I looked at him, desperate for some hope that my life wasn't falling apart. "Mark, you need to figure out what you really want," he said, his voice softer now. "What do you mean?" "I want my family, my wife, my kids, and our life together," I replied, my voice tinged with desperation. "I understand," Jordan acknowledged, "but you need to decide what's more important, your family or your pride." "What are you saying?" I asked, confused. "I see people all the time who go scorched earth, sacrificing everything just to hurt the other person. But they end up hurting themselves and their kids the most," Jordan explained, his words cutting through the fog of my thoughts. "Divorce can turn you into a part-time dad, with limited time with your kids. Karen will likely get custody and you'll be on the outside looking in." I was stunned. The thought of being a weekend dad, losing daily life with my kids, was unbearable. "What should I do, Jordan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jordan looked at me with a mix of sadness and realism. "Mark, I have a suggestion, but it might sound strange." "Go ahead, what is it?" I urged, eager for any solution. "It's simple. Do nothing," Jordan said, surprising me. "What?" I asked, not sure I heard him correctly. "Yes, do nothing. Go home and act like you don't know anything. Continue living your life as usual. Enjoy your family, play with your kids, love your wife," Jordan advised. "If you didn't know about Karen's affair before and she's been a great wife and mother, maybe you can choose to overlook it for the sake of your family." "But," I started to protest. "But nothing," Jordan interrupted. "This decision is yours alone. You need to weigh how much you value your family against what you've learned. If keeping your family together is worth it to you, then maybe ignoring this is the best option." We both finished our now cold coffees, and the waitress gave us looks, signaling it was time to either order more or pay and leave to free up the table. I sighed deeply. "I need to think about all this." Jordan stood up, and I followed. We each left a $20 bill on the table and headed outside. As we parted, Jordan said, "I need to get back to the office. Call me anytime if you want to talk. Let's meet for a beer on Friday, and you can tell me what you're thinking. Until then, promise me you won't do anything." "Okay, I promise. Thanks for listening and for the advice. I've got a million things to sort through," I replied, grateful for his support. We went our separate ways. I walked back to my office, trying not to get hit by a car on the way. When I got home, I followed Jordan's advice. I acted like everything was normal. I kissed my wife, talked to my kids, and we had dinner together. Karen was her usual self, and we spent the evening as we always did, homework with the kids, playing in the yard, and then winding down for bed. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Later, after the kids were in their rooms, I found myself just watching Karen, remembering all the things I loved about her, her smile, her figure, the way she moved. I still loved her deeply. From the moment I met her, I knew she was the one I wanted to spend my life with, the mother of my children. So what happened? I wondered. How did we get here? Looking at us, no one would guess there was a problem. We looked and acted like a loving, normal family. We held hands, kissed, and the kids came to us for everything. We were a close-knit team. As I walked through the house, I admired all the projects Karen had completed. She was amazing at home decor and renovations, tirelessly improving our home. She handled everything from painting to custom furniture and even bathroom renovations with me as her helper. How did she find time for an affair? I thought bitterly. Sometimes I barely have time to go to the bathroom. My wife was a master of deception, but here's how I knew she was seeing someone else. I was at work, meeting with clients at the Hilton Hotel. Needing a break, I stepped out for some fresh air. As I was returning, a taxi pulled up and out stepped a well-dressed man, followed by a woman who looked a lot like Karen. I was about 100 feet behind them as they walked into the hotel. He took her hand, and they headed for the elevator. I moved quickly, almost catching up as the elevator doors closed. Before they did, I saw him put his arm around her waist, and she leaned in to kiss him. It was Karen. My world collapsed. I stood there, stunned, for 10 minutes, trying to process what I had just seen. My chest tightened, and I thought I might be having a heart attack. I sat down until someone from our meeting walked by and asked if I was coming back. I returned to the meeting, but I didn't hear a word. Thankfully, meeting minutes were kept. so I didn't mess up the contract. After the meeting, I rushed home, expecting to find Karen packing to leave. But she was there, busy with the kids and preparing dinner, greeting me like she always did. That was a few weeks ago, and since then, I've been tormented by thoughts of Karen, our marriage, and our children. How could I have been so blind? I was mentally wrecked. That's when I decided I needed a plan, and I turned to Jordan for help. When Mark came to me, I knew his life was about to change. I understood that he'd have to take action, despite my warning about the toll divorce would take on him and the kids. But the key is to prioritize what's most important and focus on that first. For Mark, his children came first, so he chose to tolerate Karen's other life. I hired my usual detective to dig into Karen's activities. I wanted a clearer picture before telling Mark, because knowing everything might destroy him. They say time heals all wounds and wounds all heals. I'm not sure if that's true, but I managed to swallow my pride and act like I didn't know anything. It's strange. If I hadn't seen Karen getting into that elevator, I might never have known. Karen remains the same outwardly. A wonderful mother who cares deeply about our kids, organized and hardworking. She's still the woman I married 10 years ago, yet now she's not. I'm still unsure what to do. Should I confront her and kick her out? Should we try couples counseling? What if she wants to leave me? And what about the kids? If Karen is in love with this guy and wants to leave us for him, I'm lost. This is where Jordan comes in. He's my trump card to help me navigate this mess. I instructed my investigator, Wolfie, to take on the case. Her real name is Hannah Wolfenstein, but everyone calls her Wolfie. She's a former NYPD detective who retired after a knee injury. In her early 30s, she's tall, blonde, slim, and very attractive, which makes her excellent at blending into any situation. She also has top-notch technical skills and rarely disappoints, though her services aren't cheap. But as the saying goes, you get what you pay for. I called Wolfie to my office. When she arrived, I couldn't help but feel a strong attraction. She has that effect on men. Her knee has mostly healed, so she moves without any noticeable issues. After getting her a cup of coffee, we got to work. "Gordo, what's the job?" she asked, calling me Giordo as usual. "I have a case involving a cheating wife, one of my best friend's wives," I replied, handing her a folder with all the information we had on Karen, including her work details, addresses, phone numbers, car info, and a brief biography. I handled the legal basics, but Wolfie specializes in the more intrusive investigation, including digging into financial affairs. I explained, her husband saw her at the downtown Hilton with a man who seemed more than just a friend. I need to know what she's doing, who she's with, and for how long. This info will help her husband decide on a possible divorce and ensure he has the upper hand in a custody battle. Wolfie nodded, taking notes. I was confident she'd uncover whatever Karen was up to. She then said, "You know I don't work for free. I need my usual advance and hourly rate. I'll need at least 3 hours to draft a plan and run an electronic search. I'll get back to you in 2 days with a detailed estimate. Is that okay with you and your client?" "That's fine. He's patient, but wants information before making any moves. We'll talk in 2 days." Wolfie gathered the files, put them in her bag, and stood up. I worried that my attraction might have been obvious, and she noticed. As she reached the door, she paused and turned slightly. "Remember, you still owe me dinner," she said. "How could I forget?" I replied. She glanced at my groin and smiled. I can't stand women who think they can cheat on their unsuspecting husbands and get away with it. I've seen too many of these entitled women betray the men who work hard to provide for them. My client is a dedicated family man who was shocked when he accidentally saw his wife holding hands with another man and kissing him in an elevator at a downtown hotel. According to Giordo, he's not ready to kick her out, but he wants to know what's really going on and what his options are. I've seen this situation before. From what Jordan said, the client wants to keep his family together if possible, but everyone has their limits. I've seen rational, reserved men lose control and do things they regret. Now, I need to dig into who Karen Francis really is. I suspect this isn't her first time. Either she's gotten careless in hiding her infidelity, or this was her first slip-up. I'm not sure yet, but I'll find out. I'll send Giordo my estimate, and once he approves, I'll get to work. Jordan called me to say his investigator had completed the report. I desperately hoped there was an innocent explanation for what I saw. When I arrived at Jordan's office, his serious expression told me otherwise. "Mark," Jordan began, "Wolfie found a lot of information. I'll let her explain, but your suspicions were correct. Karen is involved with another man. I turned to the investigator, feeling a sinking dread. Mr. Francis, Wolfie said. I started looking into your wife as soon as Jordan briefed me. Unfortunately, I discovered that Karen has been involved with another man for quite some time. I felt nauseous, ran to the bathroom, and threw up. When I came back, Jordan and Hannah were there, helping me get steady. After a few deep breaths, I decided to continue. Better to get it over with than drag it out, I thought. Hannah resumed. We conducted an extensive electronic search on your wife, but there's little about her online. As a web developer, she knows how to control her online presence. She only has a Facebook page, and everything there is very family-oriented. Pictures of you, the kids, and typical family activities. I looked at her, puzzled. We checked her Facebook friends for any suspicious profiles, but found none. However, it's possible she uses a fake account on a device you don't know about. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So we used some traditional methods. We put a tracking device on her car and monitored her movements. The first week we tracked her usual places, work, home, the kids' school, the supermarket. Then we decided when and where to follow her closely. Oh my God. In the second week, we installed a listening device in her car which recorded conversations. From this, we discovered she was planning to meet a man named Thomas Murray. Do you know him? I shook my head. No, she continued. Thomas Murray is a corporate attorney working on a project for the New York State Comptroller's Office. He's married to Brittany Murray, and they live here in Albany with their daughter, Allison. Hannah handed me photos of Thomas, his wife, their daughter, and their house. Does any of this look familiar? I shook my head. Not really. When I saw Karen, I wasn't focused on him, I was looking at her. We learned from the recordings that Karen planned to meet Murray at a hotel last Wednesday. We were there and took these photos of them together. She handed me pictures of Karen holding hands with him. Hannah let me absorb the information before continuing. After identifying Mr. Murray, we did a thorough background check. We believe he and Karen were a couple in college before you met her. The world started spinning again, and Jordan handed me a paper bag, telling me to breathe into it, which helped a little. Hannah looked at Jordan, seeking confirmation to continue. I looked at her and said, "Go on," before taking a sip of water. We checked university records and found that Mr. Murray was in his third year when Mrs. Francis was a freshman. They dated for 2 years, even lived together for a year before breaking up. Not long after that, you met her, Hannah explained. Were you able to find out why they broke up? I asked. Yes, Mr. Murray went to law school in North Carolina, met his future wife there, and they married around the time he graduated. Their child was born about 6 months after the wedding, she replied. He got her pregnant, I concluded. Yes, Hannah confirmed. When did Karen start seeing him again? We're not entirely sure, but we discovered he has a separate secret bank account, likely hidden from his wife, which he uses to pay for a hotel room almost every week, Hannah continued. Does Karen have a secret bank account too? I asked. Hannah hesitated before answering. Yes, she does. It's at a credit union near her office with about $40,000 in it. I was shocked. How did she get that kind of money? I handle our taxes and we save, but not like this. She's been diverting part of her salary into this account, about 25%, and she also has a separate credit card and a second phone she uses to contact Mr. Murray, Hannah explained. Oh my God, my wife is living a double life, I muttered in disbelief. Hannah looked at Jordan, who nodded. Then Jordan spoke. Mark, there's more you need to know, and it's the hardest part. How could this possibly get worse? I asked, stunned. Jordan, looking more dejected than I'd ever seen, said, Go ahead, Wolfie, tell him. Mr. Francis, when long-term infidelity is involved, I expand my search to include other family members. Last year, you had your children's DNA taken for safety reasons. We accessed their DNA and compared it to yours and Mrs. Francis's. Karen is their mother, but you are not their biological father. What? That's impossible, I exclaimed. Jordan stepped in. Mark, I know it's hard to believe. We used your DNA from a coffee cup here and ran the tests twice. The children's father is someone else. My world collapsed again. I couldn't breathe, and the room spun until I had to lie down on the floor. As Hannah explained the DNA results, my entire reality crumbled. I have an unfaithful wife and no biological children. It took me a while to process everything. Hannah provided a detailed written report and a flash drive for me, with a copy for Jordan's files in case of a divorce. I asked Hannah, were you able to find out who the father of Karen's children is? We haven't confirmed it yet, but If you want, we can collect DNA from another potential father and compare it to the children's, she offered. I nodded. Please do. I suspect it's Thomas Murray. Hannah and Jordan exchanged glances before she said, We believe he is the biological father. Okay, do it. I don't care how you get it, just find out. We finished, and Hannah packed up her things, handing the folder to Jordan. As she prepared to leave, she said, Mr. Francis, despite everything, it seems Mrs. Francis still cares deeply for you. Before you act, think carefully. And one last piece of advice. Don't do anything that would land you in jail. It won't help you. She then motioned for Jordan to follow her into the hallway. They spoke quietly for a moment, and I saw her nod toward me a few times before she kissed Jordan on the cheek and left. I assumed they were close, perhaps with some benefits. Jordan returned, and we sat in silence for a few minutes before he stood up and said, Come on, you're coming with me.
I can't believe how much pleasure Tommy gives me. He's so good at it. You might be thinking, is it normal to be married and have a lover? For me, it is. It's actually common for married people to love someone else. It happens more often than you'd think, but not everyone ends their marriage because of it. I love Mark deeply, but I'm also in love with Tommy. You might think I'm just a cheating wife, but this is my life. Mark doesn't know about Tommy, and Tommy's wife doesn't know about me. We want to keep it that way. We spend one day a week together and have been doing this for years. I loved Tommy before we both got married, before he married Brittany and I married Mark. When Tommy met Brittany in law school and got her pregnant, he did the right thing and married her. That's when our relationship ended, and then I met Mark. We started dating, I fell in love, and we got married. But when I reconnected with Tommy, our relationship reignited. We still loved each other, but now we had other commitments. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop seeing Tommy. I loved Mark as my husband, but Tommy felt like my true love. Our relationship had to take a backseat to our marriages, so we started meeting once a week. A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. Mark was thrilled to become a father, but I wasn't sure if the baby was his or Tommy's. At the time, it didn't matter. My pregnancy only heightened my desire, and I couldn't get enough of either Mark or Tommy. After Keith was born, Tommy and I paused our affair. Mark took to fatherhood naturally and became an incredible dad. He worked all day and still came home ready to help so I could rest. When Keith was about a year old, I became pregnant with Andrea. Those 3 years were challenging, but wonderful. Mark was my hero, making our family life a joy. My time with Tommy is the escape I need. He makes me feel good and sexy, fulfilling something that Mark, despite being an amazing husband and father, can't provide. It's not that Mark isn't enough. It's just that with Tommy, I get a thrill that I can't find in my everyday life with Mark. I know I'm playing with fire, but I'm careful. Mark is too busy with work and the kids to suspect anything. I keep everything normal at home, giving him no reason to doubt me. I love Mark and don't want to hurt him, but I can't give up Tommy. He's my secret, my escape, and I need that.
I asked Jordan to drive me home in my car, and he took a taxi back to his office. Once inside the house, I wandered around, looking at everything as if for the first time. I walked into Keith and Andrea's bedrooms, remembering all the bedtime stories, the times I cared for them when they were sick, changed their diapers, and carried them around the house. They were my children. They have my last name, and my name is on their birth certificates. How could Karen lie to me for so long, I wondered. Why did she do this? If she didn't want to have children with me, why didn't she tell me? Why did we even get married? We had painted and decorated the kids' rooms multiple times, first when they were newborns and later when they started school. We added desks, changed the paint, and made the rooms their own, letting them help choose furniture. In the family room, I looked at the walls covered with framed photos of us as a family, pictures from holidays and formal family photos taken at Christmas, documenting the growth of our children and our family. Why did she have to ruin everything? I asked myself. Why did she turn our marriage into a lie? Why did she take away what mattered most to me? Do I hate her now? I loved her, but now I feel hatred. Why was she so cruel? I have no idea what to do next.
After meeting with Tommy, I returned home just before Mark got back. I always showered after being with Tommy. I use the Find My app to keep track of where Mark is. especially when he's out with the kids, because I worry about them. Tommy and I are mainly about the physical connection. I love Mark, and deep down, I know Tommy loves Brittany. Getting pregnant wasn't in Tommy's plans, but he accepted it and married Brittany. She's a good person, and they have a solid relationship. Tommy and I share the same need for passionate sex, something we don't always have time for at home. Don't get me wrong, Mark is an amazing lover and knows how to please me. But our sex life is often shaped by the challenges of family life. We usually have sex a couple of times a week, mostly on weekends. Mark is skilled and always brings me pleasure. Why do I have Tommy as a lover if my sex life with Mark is so good? The answer is simple. I want it. I crave the attention Tommy gives me. We were a couple before Mark and Brittany. I was in love with him and still am, but life didn't work out the way we imagined. Tommy got Brittany pregnant and married her, so I moved on and married Mark. Mark is a wonderful man, sweet, loyal, hardworking, and a great father. He'll do anything for me. So why isn't he enough? Because I still want Tommy. When Tommy and I broke up, it wasn't because I stopped loving him or didn't want a life with him. It was because of circumstances. Mark and Tommy each fulfill different needs for me. Mark gives me love, respect, and stability. He's an ideal husband and father, thoughtful and attentive, and we have a deep connection. But I also have a deep connection with Tommy. The way I feel when I'm with him is something I can't let go of. He brings out a side of me that I don't experience with Mark. Sometimes intense and wild, other times slow and gentle. Our time together is just for us, away from the pressures of family and work. Afterward, we shower, get dressed, and return to our separate lives. Before leaving Tommy, I always check my phone to see where Mark is. I want to avoid any chance encounters that would be hard to explain. This routine has worked well for years, and I have no plans to change it.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since Jordan and Hannah revealed what Karen had been doing throughout our marriage. I feel so foolish. I was so used to her, believing all this time that she loved me. We shared a life, a family, a home, and a future, or so I thought. In an instant, my hopes and dreams vanished. My entire marriage has been a lie. Now I don't know how to move forward. How do I handle this? When I look at Karen, I still see the woman I married, sweet, charming, beautiful, talented, hardworking, and a wonderful mother. But our children aren't really ours. They're hers and Thomas Murray's. I have no children. I feel utterly betrayed, and I can't talk to anyone about it. 3 days ago, I had a drink with Jordan, and he suggested I see a psychologist. He even made an appointment for me. Let's see if that helps.
I've noticed over the past couple of weeks that Mark has been very distracted. I have to repeat myself several times before he hears and understands me. He hardly pays attention to the children. Andrea has to physically pull his hand to get his attention. He apologizes for not listening, but within minutes, he's back in his own world. It seems he's been spending a lot more time at work and has missed school meetings we had planned to attend together, so I ended up going alone. He wakes up very early in the morning and goes for a run. He used to run for about 45 minutes and then come home to shower. But lately, he's been running for an hour and a half before returning. He barely eats at lunch and interacts with me and the kids as little as possible.
Mark met with his psychologist, Dr. Marilyn Snow. She was a kind woman, about 60 years old, with a calm and reassuring demeanor. I explained my situation to her and how it made me feel. She asked if I had any plans for the future, what I was going to do. Would I run into Karen? Was I considering divorce? Was forgiveness an option? I told her I was still trying to figure out a plan. I mentioned that my friend and lawyer, Jordan, advised me not to take any action until I was certain of my decision. Dr. Snow agreed that this was a reasonable short-term approach, but she asked about my long-term plans. I still didn't have an answer. I knew that if the betrayal had been brief, I might have been able to forgive it. But discovering that she never stopped seeing her real lover and that he was the father of her children, that was a gut-wrenching blow. How could I ever trust her again? If I accepted the situation as it was, I would have to live with the knowledge that I was her second choice, that I raised someone else's children, and that she had deceived me throughout our life together. If Murray and his wife divorced, would Karen run away with him? How could I ever be happy again knowing what I know now? It had been over a month since I last saw Mark, and today he wanted to meet at my office. He said he wanted to discuss his tentative plan for handling the situation with Karen. I greeted him at the door and we headed straight to the meeting room. Mark took off his jacket and I handed him a bottle of water, which he opened and sipped. "So, what do you want to talk about today, Jordan?" Mark asked, his voice tight with unresolved emotions. "I've been struggling ever since Hannah told me everything about what Karen was really up to. I went to the psychologist you recommended and she helped me see things from a different angle. I've been thinking about this for a long time and I believe I've made some decisions." "Okay, how can I help?" I asked, sensing the seriousness of what he was about to say. Mark began outlining his plan in detail. It was straightforward and simple, but there were some specific issues that needed careful attention. My role was to start preparing the documents and be ready to file them in court. Mark had already met with his banker and had a long discussion with his employer. Now everything hinged on these details and the timing. "I'll need Wolfie's help to execute the plan," Mark added. 2 weeks later, I found myself in Dubai, overwhelmed by the intense heat. After a long journey, train from Albany to New York, subway to JFK, and an 18-hour Air France flight with a 4-hour layover in Paris, I arrived in the United Arab Emirates, specifically Dubai, my temporary new home. I landed a job with a British engineering company working on a major project in Dubai. In our field, engineers are constantly in demand globally, and sometimes it's beneficial to move for a specific project. This was one of those times. The work will be demanding, but the rewards are worth it. My basic salary is about $25,000 per month, with excellent benefits and no income tax in the UAE. I don't plan to stay longer than 2 years, as the culture here isn't a long-term fit for me, but that could change. My only goal is to work hard and save as much money as possible. Adjusting to the climate will take some time, especially coming from central New York. The job includes an ultra-modern apartment in a high-rise with underground parking and a fast black Mercedes E450, a far cry from my old Subaru Outback in Albany. The company also assigned me an assistant, Amanda, a well-educated British woman in her late 20s. She met me at the airport and drove me to the apartment. Amanda's knowledge of the UAE, its people, and the language will be invaluable. I brought only my old leather briefcase and one suitcase, deciding to buy anything else I needed. During the drive, Amanda talked nonstop about the UAE, both praising and critiquing it, making me realize this job would be both challenging and possibly enjoyable. When I left Albany, I knew chaos would ensue, but that was no longer my concern. Karen and her boyfriend could deal with it themselves. I felt sorry for the children, but I knew no judge would let me take them away from their mother. My meeting with Mark lasted a couple of hours. He brought notes and a folder of documents to discuss, asking me to coordinate several things for him. This was the end for Karen, Francis, and Thomas Murray. Hannah had found out where Karen and Murray met each week, sometimes at a small hotel near a FedEx facility, other times at a friend's apartment to save money. Mark told me he planned to pack his things in the morning and head to the train station, leaving the country without revealing his destination, though I had his email. After dropping the kids at school and waiting for Karen to leave for work, he would return home, grab his bag, and call a taxi. This is where Wolfie came in. She had a package of documents for Karen, ready to be delivered when they were in the hotel room, likely in the middle of their affair. The plan was for Wolfie to knock on the door, posing as police, and ask them to open up. Once they did, she would ask Karen for ID, take a photo, and hand over a package with the usual, "You have received a summons" statement. Inside were divorce papers, DNA test results showing Mark wasn't the father of the children, Murray was, transcripts of phone calls between Karen and Murray, and incriminating photos. My next task was to wait for Wolfie's call confirming delivery, then contact Brittany Murray to fill her in. Mark had considered suing Murray to recoup the money he spent raising Keith and Andrea, but he didn't want Brittany and her daughter to suffer because of Murray's actions. Mark called me yesterday to say today was D-Day, the day he would leave for his new life. I immediately contacted Wolfie, who came to my office first thing to finalize her plan and collect the paperwork. Wolfie was thrilled when she arrived. I smiled and asked, "What's got you so excited?" She grinned. This woman is about to face the consequences of betraying a man who dedicated his life to her and what he thought were his kids. She deserves everything coming to her. We sat at the conference table, packed everything into large envelopes, and labeled them. After some coffee and chatting, Wolfie left to scope out Karen's workplace. Shortly after noon, she called to tell me Karen was leaving. All that was left for me was to be ready to call Brittany Murray.
I pulled into the hotel parking lot and saw Tommy's SUV already there, parked at the edge. I parked, got out, and we met at the hotel's side door. He already had the room key. I kissed him and we held hands as we entered and took the elevator. Once inside the room, we started undressing and pulled back the blanket on the bed. I wanted him right away. Mark had barely spoken to me over the past few weeks, and I was desperate for Tommy. The feel of his hands on my skin was electric. Near the bed, he pulled me close, kissing my neck and shoulders, his hands firmly on my body. We moved to the bed, where Tommy began kissing me down my chest and stomach. Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the door. A voice called out, "Mrs. Karen Francis, I know you're in there. Open the door." We froze, looking at each other, then at the door. "What the hell?" I whispered. "Mrs. Francis, open the door or hotel security will—" Tommy scrambled to find his clothes, while I grabbed what I could and started dressing. The knocking continued. "We're opening the door now," the voice warned. Wait, I'm opening it." Tommy opened the door but left the chain on. We heard, "Mr. Murray, open the door fully, or we will." Tommy looked at me, saw I was nearly dressed, and then unlatched the chain to open the door wider. A woman with a badge entered and looked at me. "Are you Mrs. Karen Francis?" she asked. I nodded. "I need a verbal yes or no, please." "Oh, yes," I replied. She approached, asking for ID. I found my bag and handed her my driver's license. She took a photo of it with her phone, then handed me a large envelope. "You've been served with a subpoena." She turned to Tommy, gave him an envelope, and said, "Mr. Thomas Murray, you've been served with a subpoena." She quickly took a photo of both of us and left. "What the hell was that?" Tommy asked, stunned. I looked at the envelope, realizing my world had just collapsed. Mark had found out about Tommy. His silence over the past weeks now made sense. The room started spinning and I nearly fainted. The next thing I remember, I was lying on the bed. Tommy was in a chair, looking at his phone. I got up, rushed to the bathroom, and threw up. Afterward, I gathered my things. "I have to go home," I said, not looking at Tommy. Somehow I made it home without causing an accident. Once inside, I called out, Mark, where are you?" Panic filled my voice. I searched the entire house, but he wasn't there. Returning to the kitchen, I noticed a white envelope on the counter with my name on it. Inside was a single piece of paper and Mark's wedding ring. Dread filled me as I unfolded the note. "Karen, by now you know I've discovered the truth about your long-term affair with Thomas Murray. I know you were with him before we married. If you haven't read the documents you were given, you should. You'll see that I know I'm not Keith and Andrea's father. Murray is. What hurts most is not being the father of the children I loved and raised. Your deception has destroyed everything, and I will never forgive you. As for our paths now, I've left. I took little with me, leaving the house and everything else for you to decide. Jordan has more paperwork for you. I've given up my claim to the house and our possessions. You probably want to know how I found out about you and Murray. It was purely by chance. I was at the same hotel where you two met. During a break, I saw you and him get into an elevator and you kissed him. The look on your face was the same one you gave me when I thought you loved me. How wrong I was. I will never contact you again so that you can move on with your life, and I can move on with mine. I'm sorry that Keith and Andrea will suffer the most from this. Perhaps they can recognize their real father and he'll be good to them. I will truly miss them. Goodbye, Mark." I dropped the letter and slumped onto the living room sofa. I dialed Mark's number, but it was disconnected. I called his office, and the receptionist informed me that Mark had left the company with no forwarding information. Crap. I called his mother, but she knew nothing. Finally, I opened the envelope with the documents and reviewed them. Everything was there. All my foolishness from the past decade, including DNA test results and damning photos. I had never tested the children's DNA, but I knew they were Tommy's as they grew older and their features changed. What have I done?
Jordan emailed me with an update on how the discovery of Karen's affair unfolded. It was tough, but I knew my life with her was over. I could never trust that she truly loved me. I was her second choice. Learning that Murray was the father of the children confirmed everything. I should have walked away without looking back. I've been in the UAE for a month now and have mostly adjusted. I called my parents to explain what happened, and though they were saddened, they understood that I couldn't accept Karen's betrayal. I'm still young, and we'll find someone new to share my life with. The situation with Thomas Murray and his wife Brittany was tense. She called me and later came to my office, where I told her everything about her husband's long-term affair with Karen. As far as I know, she hasn't decided whether to kick him out yet. Karen came demanding to know where Mark was, but I genuinely didn't know, so I didn't have to lie. I had her sign divorce papers and a specific request from Mark to have his name removed from Keith and Andrea's birth certificates and replaced with Thomas Murray's. After some negotiation with the judge and presenting DNA results, the court granted Mark's request, ensuring there would be no legal issues over responsibility for the children. Life here in the UAE is going well so far.
Being a single parent is harder than I expected. I have to handle everything for the kids and the house on my own now. Without Mark, there's no one to share the workload. My dad comes by to do minor repairs that Mark used to handle. He comes in, does the job, chats briefly with the kids if they're around, and then leaves. He barely speaks to me. My parents found out why Mark left. They knew I loved Tommy before Mark, but they assumed it was over when Tommy married Brittany. They had no idea I'd been seeing Tommy all along. Tommy is also on thin ice. I haven't seen him since that disastrous day at the hotel. I'm unsure if it's even a good idea for the kids to meet him. The house and most of our savings are mine, but I still need to work and pay bills. The court ruled that Mark isn't financially responsible for the kids since they aren't his, and I kept that from him. As for my finances, the money in the bank is mine to use as I please. Plus, I still have my not-so-secret bank account that Mark knew about. I really messed up. What should I do now?
6 months later, life moved on. I miss Karen and the kids, but thinking about her just makes me angry, at both her and myself for ruining our marriage. So I stay busy to keep her off my mind. My social life slowly picked up again. I've met a lot of people at work, many here for different reasons. Money, experiencing a new culture, or recovering from something. I'm here for all those reasons. Last month, I took a motorcycle adventure through the desert to an oasis. I bought a used BMW F800 GS and joined a local motorcycle club for weekend trips. Amanda mentioned she wanted to try something like this, so I invited her along. It was her first time on a motorcycle and my first time with a passenger. We had a blast. The organizer thought we were a couple, so when we arrived, there was only one room with one bed available, and the hotel was full. We had to share. It was awkward at first, but we managed. I offered to sleep on the floor, but she insisted we share the bed. In the morning, I woke up holding her waist. I didn't mean to, but that's how it happened. The awkward part was that I was very excited, and it wouldn't go away. Amanda was still asleep, but she started moving and her body brushed against me. I got out of bed quickly and went to the bathroom before things got more awkward. When I came out, she was getting dressed without a bra, and her movements caught my eye. She noticed and said, "Never seen a half-unclothed woman before?" Then she took off her t-shirt and headed to the bathroom. I heard the water running and then, "Are you coming or not?" That was the start. Everything changed after that.
Mark and I returned to London to visit my parents, who had met him last Christmas when we were here for the holidays. My father, a banker, and my mother, a teacher, are wealthy and nearing retirement. They were curious about the American I was bringing home. My dad wanted to get to know Mark better, so they went to the local pub for a beer and a chat. A couple of hours later, they returned, and my dad was smiling, clearly more comfortable with Mark. I'm sure he shared what he learned with my mom. Now it's summer, and we're back with big news. Mark and I are moving to the UK, his first time living here. He has a new job on a major construction project in the Cotswolds. The pay is great, and we plan to rent a house first, then maybe buy one in a couple of years. We want a place with at least 3 bedrooms, and I'd prefer 2 bathrooms so we don't have to share with guests. I know, I'm selfish. The other big news is that I'm pregnant due in November. So we want to move, settle down, handle medical issues, and oh yes, get married. Mark proposed, and I said yes. I've searched for Mark online almost every day since he left. I still have the letter he left in the kitchen. The kids were devastated that the father they knew disappeared without a word. What could he even say? Sorry, kids, I'm not really your father. but your mother's a liar, so I'm leaving. That wouldn't go over well. I know I caused this mess. I've started seeing a therapist weekly and will continue as long as my insurance covers it. She says I was fooling myself into thinking I could have both men without consequences, and that I set Mark up to fail as a husband and father, leading to his departure. She advised me to apologize to Mark and the kids. It would be nice if I could find him. I can't afford a private investigator, so I occasionally ask his family for help. But Mark's father tells me to go to hell, and his mother won't speak to me. We moved to a smaller, more affordable house, though the kids don't like it. I'm driving Mark's old Subaru. It's still reliable.
I tried hard to forget the time when I believed I was the happiest person on earth. Everything changed the day my ex-wife had that chance encounter with her lover at the hotel. Without it, I might never have known the truth. But I found out, and I had to act. 10 years of deception is too much. How can someone lie every day, say they love you while betraying you, and take your love to give to someone else? How can you lie to your own children? I'm not perfect, and some may criticize how I handled Karen and her betrayal, but it was the only way I could stay true to myself. My biggest regret is for the children, Keith and Andrea. I hope they get to know their real father, and that he loves them as I did. Karen destroyed my love. She poisoned it. I couldn't look at Keith and Andrea knowing they were born from deceit. They deserve better. I'll do my best to be a good father to my child. Mark's actions were drastic. I thought he might regret leaving the children, even though they weren't his. He was there for their births, raised them, changed diapers, fed them, and witnessed their first words and steps. He was their dad. But I saw a friend deeply hurt by the betrayal of the woman who promised to love him. Her betrayal couldn't have been worse unless she had shot him. I understand why Mark left, and as his friend and lawyer, I supported him. Karen still calls asking where he is or begging him to come home. I forwarded a few messages until Mark told me to stop, so I did. Every few months, I get a brief email from Mark updating me on his life. I know he's leaving the UAE for the UK and that he has a new woman named Amanda. I promised not to tell Karen. I'm happy for Mark. He set up an education fund for Keith and Andrea for when they go to college, and I'll make sure they get it. As for me, I got married to Wolfie, though my family knows her as Hannah. She's pregnant, and we're expecting a baby in December. We've decided to drop the nickname before our child understands what it means.